Many of the first-generation Japanese Americans, or Issei, living in the Ontario-Oregon area were active Buddhists and decided to form a local Buddhist congregation. Japanese Americans who resided in the area prior to World War II had constructed a community hall in the late 1930s for their young people to have a place to participate in athletics and social activities, so the hall provided the Buddhist congregation with a gathering place. By 1946, a planning committee was established, and with help from Reverend Tesshin Shibata, a budget was prepared. Reverend Shibata had previously served as the minister at the White River Buddhist Temple in Auburn, Washington, prior to the war. A plot of land about 6 miles southwest of Ontario, near the former golf course, was acquired, and construction began by late 1946 to build a residence for the Shibata family and a temporary place for temple services. The temple on Butler Boulevard was dedicated on April 13, 1947, and the Idaho-Oregon Buddhist Temple was officially added to the list of the Association of Buddhist Churches of America. A membership drive was launched with members coming in from Boise, Nampa, Caldwell, Emmett, Weiser, Payette, New Plymouth, Fruitland, Vail, Nissa, Ontario, and the Oregon Slope. You can see that we had a wide-ranging group of people. In 1949, the Issei met with the Nisei, or second-generation Japanese Americans, and discussed plans for enlarging the Buddhist temple. They reached the decision to build closer to town, and land was purchased on the east side of Ontario, where at that time a majority of the Japanese businesses and homes were located. In 1952, a groundbreaking for the new temple was held. Lord Abbot Otani of Nishihonganji Temple in Kyoto, Japan, was present for the groundbreaking. Due to economic conditions, construction of the temple was delayed until 1956. Much of the labor was donated by the members during their slack time on the farms, which was during the winter time. Building of the temple was supervised by Bill Fenton, the lead carpenter. Frank Adachi, a local Idaho-Oregon Buddhist temple member, assisted the lead carpenter by scheduling workdays for the volunteers. Frank was employed by the temple during the duration of the construction. The volunteers worked hard, but they never went hungry. Mid-morning and mid-afternoon, otoki, or meals, were prepared by the Issei women. Lunch was prepared by the Fujinkai ladies. Fujinkai are the Association of Buddhist Women, and these lunches were served in the basement of Tsukamaki's fish market. Building of the new temple was completed, and on February 9, 1958, a dedication service was held with Lord Abbot Otani once again in attendance. 1 week later, on February 16, 1958, the temple hosted the Northwest Buddhist Convention. In January 1959, the final payment for the new temple building at 286 Southeast 4th Street, its current location, was made. The statue of Amida Buddha, the central piece of the altar, was a gift from Nishihonganji Temple in Kyoto. In the 1960s and 1970s, the temple was served by Reverend Masanori Ohata, Reverend Yoshiaki Takemura, Reverend Tetsunen Hirota, and Reverend Shinryo Sawada. Many memorable events happened during these years. Reverend Takemura took a bold step by hosting a weekly local radio show, sharing the Buddhist teachings in English at a time when most of the temple programs were offered only in Japanese. The show was supported by donations from members. The Issei, or first-generation Japanese, donated 2 small golden shrines, one of Shinran Shonin and the other of Renyo Shonin, which were placed on both sides of the main altar prior to the 20th anniversary held in April 1967. In 1976, Marvin Harada, now Bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America, and Kathy Hoshide Chatterton proposed the idea of more Sangha involvement in the temple services. An English language adult study class was started in 1976, so that the Nisei would be able to learn more about the Buddhist teachings that were available earlier only in the Japanese language. The other innovation was time to share, a time during the regular service where members of the Sangha could share a reading, an experience, or an idea with others. Some people even told jokes. Connie Shimojima was the longtime leader of Time to Share. Many years later, Connie would be given the title of Honorary Minister's Assistant for his dedication to sharing the Dharma, or teachings. A winter retreat was started in 1977 for the Nisei and Sansei, or third generation. The temple's education committee, along with the resident ministers, invited notable teachers to come to the temple for a full-day Saturday session with members. Our inaugural retreat included then Bishop Kendo Tsuji and Reverend Haruyoshi Kusada. The retreats were held annually, excluding years when IOBT hosted the Northwest Convention, until September of 1999. Notable speakers included Reverend Gyome Kubose, Reverend Tetsu Uno, Reverend Arthur Takemoto, Reverend Will Masuda, Reverend Ron Nakasone, Reverend Nobuo Haneda, Reverend Ken Tanaka, and Reverend Tai Tetsu Uno. Reverend Charles Hasegawa arrived from Hawaii to serve as resident minister from 1983 to 1996. Reverend Charles was the first English-speaking minister to serve at IOBT. In June 1996, the permanent awning was constructed on the north side of the temple to help provide shade and shelter for outdoor activities like Japan Night Obon Festival and also the Bazaar. Fundraising projects such as the Japan Night Obon Festival and the Fall Bazaar with its world-famous kakimochi, or crackers made from mochi rice, have been well attended and supported by the surrounding community. But both, unfortunately, have been on hold since the pandemic began in 2020. The next Japan Night Obon Festival will be the 74th annual and will be held at Four Rivers Cultural Center in July 2023. The 2000s included Reverend Kakue Tada and Reverend Joshin Dennis Fujimoto as resident ministers. Sangha Taiko had its beginnings in early 2000 and has been an important part of the outreach of the temple. Sangha Taiko has had 3 different leaders. The original leader was Jeannie Ozawa. Following Jeannie, Reverend Dennis Fujimoto took leadership of the group until his transfer in 2016. In March 2017, Taeko DeAndrea became the sensei, or teacher, and the creative director of this group. They have performed at temple events like Hanamatsuri, or the festival celebrating the birth of Buddha, and Japan Night Obon Festival, as well as events such as the opening of the 2020-2021 Tokyo Summer Olympics at Jump in Boise, Idaho. In 2019, Sangha Taiko recorded for the film Bamboo and Barbed Wire, directed by Karen Day, and also played at the premiere of the film at the Egyptian Theater in Boise. Currently, the temple is served by Reverend Jerry Hirano, supervising minister, and assistant ministers Reverend Ann Spencer and Reverend Kathy Chatterton. In October 2011, under the guidance of Reverend Fujimoto, a satellite group of the temple, known as the Boise Sangha or Boise Hoakai, was launched in Boise, Idaho. The group rented space at the United Church of Christ First Congregational Church in Boise, Idaho, for its weekly meetings. During the pandemic, the group led by Reverend Ann Spencer and Reverend Kathy Chatterton has continued to meet through Zoom and also during outdoor in-person meetings on a twice-monthly basis. This informal group has wide-ranging discussions about Buddhism and contemporary issues and welcomes visitors and people new to Buddhism as well as old-timers. On July 8, 2022, an electrical fire in the temple's basement social hall caused extensive damage to building and property. Sangha Taiko musical instruments and stands were damaged or destroyed, and they were displaced from their practice location. As we celebrate our temple's 75th anniversary, this fire gives us the opportunity to reflect on our past. It also gives us a chance to think about our future. As we repair and rebuild, we need to think about what the next 75 years will bring. What changes have happened over the past 75 years? What will happen in the next 75? The teachings of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism tell us that the infinite wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha fill the universe and support all beings unconditionally. The Buddhist teachings also acknowledge that human life is difficult and often painful. And yet, even in these difficulties, there is an inherent value in all beings. Amida Buddha's compassion is directed toward each of us, regardless of our actions, our religious beliefs, occupation, ethnicity, or social situation. We believe that this compassionate teaching of Buddhism is just as meaningful now as it was for our temple's founders and ancestors. And we believe that these teachings can be an important part of the growth of a compassionate and diverse society in Eastern Oregon and Western Idaho. As we look to the future, our hope is that our temple will be able to offer cultural and religious activities that are meaningful, fun, and inspirational to people in the Treasure Valley and beyond. We hope that our temple continues to be a vibrant part of the community and that we can both share our teachings with others as well as being open to learning from and collaborating with those of other faiths and backgrounds. We are so grateful for all that we have received in the past. We are grateful for our supportive and generous community right now in this present moment, and we look optimistically toward our future.